Hello everyone, I'm Xin Weini. Today I'm going to introduce Renaissance period music. First, when was the Renaissance period of music? The Renaissance period of classical music spans approximately 1,400 to 1,600 years. It was preceded by the medieval period followed by the Baroque period. The Renaissance era of music history came significantly later than the era of Renaissance art, which arguably peaked during the 14th and 15th century. Yet the Renaissance music era proved to be equally robust. Next is a brief history of Renaissance music. The Protestant Reformation of Catholic-century Reformation of the 16th century liberalized some forms of art, and both church music and secular art music grew during the Renaissance era. Meanwhile, the 1439 invention of the printing press helped standardize music notation across Europe, although it would continue to evolve during the Baroque era and Classical era. The Renaissance era itself spans three phases. First, early Renaissance. The music of early Renaissance centered around the Burgundian school, a group of composers led by Guillaume Dufay in northern France and the Low Countries. Early Renaissance music followed closely in the spirit of late medieval music, but with less syncopation and a greater focus on harmonic cadences. As the early Renaissance period gave way to the Middle Renaissance, church composers Johannes Ockeghem and Jacob Orchid pushed new boundaries in polyphony in their intricate masses. And the second, Middle Renaissance. The Middle Renaissance began around the time that the Catholic Church's Council of Trent issues as it discourages the use of excessive polyphony in vocal church music. This led to a rollback of technical uses by Albrecht and Ockeghem, but it gave rise to a new generation of Renaissance composers who embraced simpler forms of harmony. The most enduring composers of the Middle Renaissance are the Franco-Flemish composer Jonico des Prez and the Italian composers Giovanni Pierluigi da Palestrina of the Roman school. Josquin was a master of scaled music, and Palestrina introduced the independent interlocking methodology lines we now call counterpoint. At times, however, both Josquin and Palestrina would pave homepage to the simple monophonic melodies that defined the medieval era. And third one, late Renaissance. The late Renaissance gave way to a style known as Mannerism, wherein music was established with various forms of the ornamentation, suspension, and even charmistic. This would set the table of bold, dynamic, heavily embellished music of the Baroque era. Next, the Renaissance period music forms. The Renaissance period gave rise to the music forms like motets, the madrigal, spiritual, the mass, and the lied, all of which were liturgical styles of music. Secular music also had a place in the Renaissance era. Secular forms include the secular motet and the motet chanson, the secular madrigal, the villancico, the fortola, the rondo, the ballad, the duzon, and the canzonette. Next, future artistic of Renaissance music. Renaissance music represented a great leap in sophistication from the medieval era music of the Middle Age. Key characteristics of Renaissance music include these three. First, polyphony. While medieval music is often characterized by homophonic singing, as in Georgian chant, Renaissance music by composers like Josquin, Palestrina, and Thomas Tales emphasize multiple voice singing in the polyphonic style. The same was true for multiple part instrument music. And the second one, tonal music. Most music of the Middle Age was modal, meaning it followed musical modes as opposed to the major scale of minor scale. In the Renaissance era, this began to change. Some music, particularly vocals music, remained modal in nature, but newer forms like the English madrigal and the Italian madrigal embraced the tonal music that remains popular to this today. Tonal music places strong emphasis on cadence at the end of section or entire pieces. This way, a listener's ear can be encouraged in a particular way. Key. And the third one, increased risk-taking. Early Renaissance music, like that of Guillaume Dufay, maintained the harmonic roles of medieval music from the late Middle Ages. But as new styles emerged over the course of the 16th century, Renaissance music began pushing boundaries and introducing moments of dissonance. Italian and German a cappella music employed a style called musica riservata, featuring notable charm and ornamentation. Meanwhile, musically bold passages by composers like Palestrina would heavily influence early Baroque musicians, such as the Venetian composer Claudio Monteverdi. Next, instruments of the Renaissance period. The Renaissance period saw a mix of new musical instruments and holdovers from earlier music. Common Renaissance instruments include these 13: harpsichord, clavichord, viol, lute, rebec, lyre, guitar, recorder, cornet, trumpet, trombone, known at the time as sackbut, trombone, transverse flute. And at the final, I'm going to talk about three influential Renaissance composers. The musical literature of the Renaissance has not endured the degree that Baroque, Classical, and Romantic era music has. Still, several Renaissance composers remain highly influential to this day. The first one, Josquin des Prez. Josquin des Prez was a prodigious composer of both church music and secular music. His liturgical motets are widely taught in music schools as examples of Renaissance harmony and notation. He was particularly known in his lifetime for composing 32 religious masses. And the second one, Carlo Gaspardello, better known in his lifetime as Gaspardello da Villanosa. This late Renaissance composer was perhaps the most famous of his era to emerge from Italy. He was also notorious for a string of murders he is alleged to have committed. Gesualdo published 6 volumes of Italian madrigals, which featured charmisticisms that would not be equaled until deep into the Baroque era. And the third one, Giovanni Pierluigi da Palestrina, simply known as Palestrina to most. This Roman school composer is sometimes credited as the link between Renaissance and Baroque music. Palestrina's mastery of counterpoint was among the most robust of his era. Palestrina was known for his masses such as the Missa Papae Marcel, which made him famous in his own lifetime. This is